This might come as a shock to you, but I love video games. Games let you dive into amazing worlds and immerse yourself in incredible stories, enjoying thrilling adventures. But for me, just being immersed in a game isn't enough. I want to actually be in the game myself and play it myself. Of course, there are plenty of games that let you create your own character using special editors, but that's just not the same. And besides, most interesting games don't even have such editors. And in a way, that's the right approach. In the wrong kind of game, a character editor can ruin the atmosphere and the creator's vision. After all, let's be honest, it would be weird if, say, in Half-Life, instead of the scientist Gordon Freeman, you had some random guy running around with a mask on his face. That's why in such projects, a pre-made model is used and you can't change it. Or can you? What if you dig into the game files, pull out that very model, and replace it with your own? Go ahead and brew yourself a pot of tea, grab a mug of dumplings. Let's get started. For this experiment, if you can call it that, I picked 3 games that are very close to me and I'll try to add myself into them. You'll find out which games they are as you watch the video. So, as you've probably guessed from my plan to put myself into a game, I need to take a character from the game I've chosen, preferably the main character, and replace their 3D model with my own. But there's a small problem. I don't have my own 3D model, so it makes sense to start by creating one. For this task, I chose Blender, the program I use to make these little cinematics for my videos. But there are some challenges. I know how to animate in Blender, but I have absolutely no modeling skills. I also don't even have basic knowledge of human anatomy, texturing, or topology. Like, what is this thing? How does it work? As you can tell, I had to learn a lot of things on the fly. I even printed out this Blender book for myself, but I never ended up using it. No, wait. To start, I took photos of my front and side profiles so I could at least have a rough idea of what I look like, and then I placed those photos in Blender. First, I tried sculpting the legs. To do this, I took a regular cube and started shaping it according to the reference. It didn't turn out very well, but what did you expect from someone who didn't even sculpt with clay as a kid? Still, I managed to get some kind of legs. I sculpted the upper body using exactly the same method. Now it's a full-fledged person. Well, full-fledged is a stretch. He still doesn't have arms, legs, or a head, and we'll get back to making those later. First of all, I started creating the texture for my pants. Thinking I was a Blender guru, I decided I could recreate denim material from scratch all by myself. After spending about an hour, I realized I was a pretty lousy guru, so I completely changed my strategy and went with the simplest approach. I found a denim texture online and just slapped it onto the model. It turned out terrible. So I started sculpting folds on the jeans to give them a bit more realism. And in the end, it still looked just as awful. But well, at least there are some jeans now. Alright, let's put the jeans aside and move on to the upper body. To start, I began sculpting my favorite black shirt. As you can see, I'm not much of a fashion designer either, so I had to do everything relying solely on my own imagination. After that, somehow, following online tutorials, I created a material for my shirt and just like with the jeans, sculpted the folds. Next, I made a tank top using the same method. I made the blouse, and for the textures, I used photos of a real t-shirt that I carefully tossed on the floor. Now my outfit is completely finished. All that's left is to put myself into these clothes, or more precisely, to add hands, feet, and my head to the model. Since replicating human anatomy is much more difficult than sculpting jeans, I decided to recreate the missing body parts using photogrammetry. Photogrammetry is the process of recreating a physical object in 3D using photographs taken from different angles, from which a special program automatically generates a complete model. I took my phone and photographed my hand and face from all sides, then uploaded them into the program for processing. The process isn't quick, so all that's left is to wait. After an hour and a half of waiting, the program finally finished processing and produced this result. The result, as you can see, is so-so. Because of this, I decided to postpone photogrammetry for later and try to recreate the hands based on the reference photos I took, using a hand model downloaded from the internet as a base and adjusting it to match my proportions. I also created the simple skin material, and it turned out pretty well. Delving deeper into photogrammetry, I waited for cloudy weather outside to get even lighting and decided to try photographing again, this time using my sneakers. The result turned out much better than all the previous attempts. However, now the resulting model needs to be cleaned up from various debris, the topology needs to be fixed, the material tweaked, UVs created, textures baked, and a lot of other boring stuff done that you probably wouldn't find interesting. With some difficulty, I ended up with this sneaker model, which I duplicated and attached to my clothing. I did exactly the same thing with my head. Let's tweak the materials a bit, create normal maps, and voila! My 3D model is ready. And now I can do whatever I want with it. Now as soon as our model is ready, we can start transferring it into games. I decided to start with the game that destroyed most of my nerve cells, Dark Souls. I'm not going to talk about how I unpacked and extracted the files from each game in this video. All that information can easily be found on the internet. I'll just say that it was difficult. Unfortunately, I can't just take the standard character model and replace it with myself. Well, theoretically I could, but in practice it's difficult, so I decided not to replace the character itself, but rather the knight's armor model. In Dark Souls 3, the armor consists of a helmet, upper body, gloves, and lower body. That means I need to split my model into identical pieces, find each piece of armor in the game files, and gradually replace them with parts of my own model. It took me several days to figure out how to properly attach the model parts to the in-game skeleton and to locate each piece of the knight's armor in the game files. However, when I replaced the last piece of armor, I discovered that for some reason my model was way too shiny in the game. I tried to fix this by changing the specular texture replacement values in the model settings, and I asked for help on forums and in Discord from modders, but unfortunately it seems that this shine is a feature of the game engine. But I'm more inclined to think that I'm just clumsy. Still, one way or another, I can say that I managed to bring myself into Dark Souls. The next victim I decided to throw myself into was the game's Spider-Man Remastered. Oh, the kinds of mods people have made for it. Here's Shrek, climbing up walls. Here's CJ, shooting webs. Or here's... Well anyway, the process of porting is similar to Dark Souls. With the help of a bunch of programs and a lot of trial and error, I extract a random suit from the game. In my case, it's the very first suit you get at the beginning. I throw it into Blender and extract the skeleton from it. Next, I attach my model to this skeleton, tweak it a bit, and after more trial and error, I put the modified model back into the game. And that's it. Wait a second, I think I forgot about the textures. Unlike in Dark Souls, here I don't need to split the suit into parts myself. The game automatically breaks the model into pieces and assigns each one a random material from the game. All I have to do to fix this mess is find those materials and replace them with my own. It's not hard to do, but it takes a ton of time. Although, while replacing the files, I did slightly mess up the textures of another suit. But let's just gloss over that. In any case, I'm happy to present to you the result of my 2 weeks of work. And of course, I just couldn't resist trying to add myself to Half-Life, a game in which I suffered so much that I still have nightmares about it. Getting the model out of the game isn't hard. Fortunately, in the 25 years since the game was released, many convenient tools have been created for editing its files. The challenge, however, is that unlike the previous two games, this one is played from a first-person perspective, which means that even if you replace the main character's model with your own, it won't be noticeable during gameplay. As a possible solution to this problem, let's pick a secondary character. At first I thought about using Barney's model, but after looking at my skinny legs, I realized I'd make a terrible security guard. So I decided to replace the scientist's model, since they interact with the player quite often. I was modifying the one version of Half-Life, the very one I speedrun in the previous video. There are 4 different scientist models in the game, but in reality it's just one model with 4 different head versions and 2 hand colors. Because my model is too detailed and doesn't fit Half-Life, where all the models are simple due to the game's age, I had to completely redo my head model in the game's style and put it on the scientist's skeleton. After that, I simply reworked each texture on the scientist model and ended up with something like this. However, since all the scientists used the same body model, changing the clothing affected the other scientists as well. That's why I think it would be a good idea not to touch the scientist's body model and only change the head. In my opinion, this would even fit into the game a little better. Let me know in the comments if you disagree.